"He's coming!" Monica shouted from the apartment balcony, holding a cell phone in one hand and a glass of Prosecco in the other. "Juliet, sweetheart, get over here. Your dad's car just turned the corner." Juliet came out of the kitchen laughing, wiping her hands on a white dish towel. The scent of fresh lasagna still hung in the air, mingling with the cheerful sound of laughter and ambient music from speakers subtly placed around the loft. It was Friday night, and the pre-wedding dinner was in full swing at her spacious Soho apartment. The doorbell rang. Monica rushed to answer it. It was Mr. Whitman, Juliet's stepfather, accompanied by his wife and a few family friends. They all walked in carrying gifts, wine, and that joyful energy typical of people about to take part in a grand event. Juliet smiled as she hugged him, her light brown hair gently falling over her shoulders. She wore a simple beige dress, just tight enough to show off her 7-month baby bump. Pregnancy had brought out her serene beauty, though her eyes still held that knowing shine of someone who'd cried enough in life to understand it was finally time to smile. "The place looks beautiful, sweetheart," her stepfather said, looking around. "Feels like a preview of the ceremony." "I wanted to keep it all intimate tonight. Tomorrow's going to be chaos," Juliet replied with a smile. Dinner was served soon after. Homemade lasagna, arugula salad with candied walnuts, artisan bread and wine for the guests, while Juliet sipped orange juice from a wine glass, just to feel part of the celebration. Conversations ranged from childhood memories to wedding advice. Some aunts said Juliet and Elon were New York's new power couple. Others raved about her custom-made wedding dress by a Brooklyn designer. Juliet listened intently, though her mind wandered inward, as if searching for some hidden certainty. When dinner ended and guests began to trickle out, Monica reappeared, more animated than ever. "Okay, Juliet," she said, sitting next to her friend on the couch. "Now that we're just hours away from the wedding of the century, you need to do something special for your fiancé." Juliet raised an eyebrow. "Something special like what?" Monica rolled her eyes and answered, as if it were obvious. "Like giving him the gift in person. You spent a fortune on that Rolex with the engraving. 'To the father of my whole life,' remember? And the letter? That letter made me cry. And I'm not even hormonal like you." Juliet chuckled softly, placing a pillow under her belly. "I'm exhausted, Moni. Seriously. I've been on my feet all day dealing with the florist, catering, and getting guests settled. My legs are throbbing." "Exactly why you should do it," Monica countered, with that stubborn tone she used when she wouldn't let an idea die. "It'll mean even more. A gesture of love in the middle of all the exhaustion. Elon's at the Langham tonight, right? Alone. Or almost. It'll only be weird if you make it weird. Just go, give him the gift, a quick kiss, and come back. 10 minutes, it'll be worth it." Juliet hesitated. Her gaze fell on the already wrapped gift box, black with a golden ribbon, sitting on the dresser. She'd planned to give it to him after the ceremony, as part of her vows, but Monica was right. Maybe it would be even more meaningful if he got it before. "Okay," she said finally, "but I won't stay long. Just hand it over and leave. No long talk." "That's it!" Monica cheered, already grabbing Juliet's light blazer. "Go in the dress you're wearing. You look gorgeous." Minutes later, Juliet went downstairs to catch her Uber. The Manhattan night air was mild, and the city lights sparkled like diamonds in the sky. She kept one hand on her belly during the ride, the other holding the gift bag and letter. "The Langham Hotel, please," she told the driver. The car glided smoothly down Park Avenue until it reached the hotel's elegant entrance. Juliet stepped out slowly, feeling the weight of her body and the moment. The lobby was quiet, adorned with marble and gold accents. Everything there exuded luxury and calm. She approached the front desk. "Good evening," she said gently. "I'm looking for Mr. Elon Hayes. He checked in earlier today." The receptionist, dressed in a flawless uniform, typed something into the computer and smiled politely. "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Hayes is staying in the presidential suite. However, he left instructions not to be disturbed. In fact, he's not alone." Juliet blinked slowly. "Not alone?" "Correct. He arrived with a woman. They said it was a private engagement. I'm sorry, ma'am, but the request is clear." The information hit Juliet like a blunt punch, But she kept her composure. She smiled with effort and replied, "That's fine. Thank you for the information." She walked away from the desk slowly, as if stepping on glass. Each stride toward the elevator grew heavier than the last. Her reflection in the metal doors revealed a woman with a frozen face but wide eyes, terrified, yet silent. Inside the elevator, she hesitated. Her finger hovered over the button for the 7th floor for a few seconds before pressing it. The system beeped softly and the doors closed. The hallway on the 7th floor was empty, bathed in a sterile glow from overhead lights. Soft classical music leaked from hidden speakers, sounding too calm for the storm rising inside her. Juliet walked calmly, passing rooms 708, 710, and stopping in front of 712. The number was gold, engraved on a brushed metal plate. She pressed her ear to the door. At first only muffled whispers, then laughter, his voice, then moans, a woman's moans. Juliet stepped back, brought her hand to her mouth, and fought the urge to scream. She was dizzy. Something inside her shattered, but she wouldn't let herself break. With trembling fingers, she pulled out her phone and started recording. Elon's voice came through the door clearly. "Juliet's been super emotional lately, always talking about the future. Truth is, I'm only marrying her because of the baby." The other woman laughed. It was Rachel's voice. "You're awful," she whispered, smiling. "When that baby's born, I'll have full control. She thinks this is love, but without the pregnancy, she'd be nothing to me." More laughter, more moans, more sounds Juliet would never forget. After 6 minutes of audio, she stopped the recording and walked back to the elevator, swallowing the nausea rising in her throat. Her heart was shattered, but her face remained untouched. No tears fell. On the contrary, something inside her hardened. Back in the Uber, she asked to be taken to a 24-hour pharmacy. She bought water, tissues, and a new memory card. In the car, she transferred the audio, backed it up to the cloud, and sent a copy to her email. The driver glanced at her through the rearview mirror, concerned. "Are you okay, ma'am?" Juliet looked straight ahead, her eyes still dry. "Not yet, but I will be." When the car stopped in front of her building, she sat there for a few more minutes. The city outside was still alive, but inside her there was only silence. She leaned her head against the window and whispered, "Elon, tomorrow you'll see exactly who you betrayed." The phone vibrated on the nightstand, casting flashes of light across the dark bedroom with its persistent screen. Juliet didn't move. She lay on her side, eyes open, staring at the blank wall. The digital clock read 3:47 a.m. She hadn't slept a single minute. The recording, those words, Elon's voice, Rachel's laughter. Every sound pounded in her mind like a hammer striking glass. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was real. She had heard it with her own ears. And now she lay there carrying the daughter of that man, the same man who had laughed at her, who had called her nothing, who had promised eternal love, but on the eve of their wedding was with someone else, mocking the future she had dreamed up for the two of them. The phone vibrated again. Elon calling. Juliet turned her head and ignored it. The silence in the loft clashed with the storm inside her. The room, delicately decorated for the night before the wedding, now felt like a poorly lit stage play. Everything out of place, everything fake. Her wedding dress still hung in the closet, floating like a white ghost. The letter she had written to Elon remained inside the gift box, untouched. She sat up slowly. Her belly felt heavy, but not heavier than what weighed on her chest. She reached out, picked up the phone and opened the recording app again. She pressed play. Once more, she let each word fill the room like poison. Elon's voice echoed clearly, calm, as if at a casual dinner, guiltless, without hesitation. "Juliet's been super emotional lately, always talking about our future. I'm only marrying her because of the baby." Rachel's laugh, the sound of kissing, the creak of the bed. Juliet shut her eyes tight, but didn't stop the audio. She needed to hear it again. She needed the pain, she needed the certainty. At the end of the 6 minutes, she hit pause, took a deep breath, grabbed the new memory card she had bought at the pharmacy, and copied the file to it. Then she sent a copy to her own email, one to her lawyer, and one to her stepfather. She wouldn't hesitate. There would be no forgiveness, no doubt. She would not be manipulated. At 5:12 a.m., Juliet got out of bed. She walked to the bathroom and washed her face, looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't weak, she wasn't naive, she wasn't just a betrayed bride. She was a mother, a wounded woman, and now awakened. She got dressed in black leggings, a loose, comfortable top, and tied her hair back. She picked up her phone and with steady hands dialed the first number. "Hello?" came a deep voice, still groggy with sleep. "Mr. Hayes?" she asked, already knowing it was him, her stepfather. "Juliet? Sweetheart, are you okay? What happened?" "I need you to pull your investment from Hayes Tech. Now, before the market opens. I can't explain over the phone, but it's urgent." There was silence. The man knew Juliet well enough to recognize that when she used that tone, something serious had happened. "Okay, I trust you. It'll be done. Are you safe?" "I am now. Thank you." The call ended, but Juliet was already dialing again. "Miller and Clark Law Office, good morning. This is Juliet Monroe. I need to speak with Dr. Clark immediately. It's urgent. About my wedding." Seconds later, a bright, professional voice came on the line. "Juliet, so good to hear from you. Everything's set for tomorrow, right? Dr. Clark, please, I need you to cancel the marriage registration. I want the entire process annulled. Nothing can be valid tomorrow." A brief pause. "Juliet, are you sure? Is something going on?" "I'm sure. I can't go into details, but trust me, I'll cover any fees. I just need the marriage legally cancelled. No license, no active authorization. I want it off the books today." "Understood. I'll take care of it immediately. Just send me a formal confirmation by email. As soon as the office opens, I'll start the process." "Thank you, doctor. I knew I could count on you." Juliet hung up. She sat at the edge of the bed. For a moment, her shoulders dropped. She inhaled deeply and exhaled slowly. The pain was still there, pulsing, but the desperation had vanished. In its place, a near supernatural calm had begun to form. As the sun began to light up New York's buildings with its cold orange glow, the household was already in motion. Monica returned from the market with bags, talking about centerpieces. The decorator arrived to confirm the transport of flower arrangements. Aunt Lorraine was yelling at someone on the phone about the ceremony chairs. Juliet, however, moved through the hallway like a shadow, silent, focused. She entered the guest room and locked the door. She grabbed her phone and connected the recording to a small Bluetooth adapter. Then she placed everything inside a hidden compartment in the faux bouquet she had ordered as a backup for the ceremony. All set. Shortly after, Monica knocked on the door with 2 plates of pancakes. "Brought you breakfast, future Mrs. Hayes." Juliet opened the door with a faint smile. She took the plate and sat on the bed, while Monica rambled on about the dress, the weather, and the schedule. "And Elon?" Monica asked casually. "Talk to him today?" "He called a few times," Juliet answered in a tone so neutral Monica couldn't quite read it. "Nervous, huh? He's probably freaking out. Men get like this before the wedding. They don't know how to handle emotions." Juliet didn't reply. She just looked at her friend for a few seconds, then said, "Monica, you still trust me, right?" "Of course I do. Why?" "Then tomorrow, just watch. Don't ask anything now. Just watch me." Monica furrowed her brow but nodded slowly. Juliet stood, set the plate on the dresser and walked to the mirror. She looked at her reflection, at the woman who had survived betrayal, who refused to be humiliated, who was about to show the world that self-love is worth more than any ceremony. Dr. Clark's message came in at 8:37. Marriage registration officially cancelled. No union can be validated today. Good luck, Juliet. She smiled for the first time in days. Outside, the city buzzed with horns, footsteps, and coffee orders. But Juliet was walking into a different kind of day, a day the world would never forget. She turned to the mirror one last time and said softly, "Today I walk in wearing white, but not to give myself to a man. I walk in to free myself from one." "Juliet, breakfast is on the table. Aunt Lorraine called from the kitchen as the clatter of silverware echoed through the downstairs floor. Juliet closed the guest room door quietly, shutting herself off from the noise of the house. Outside, everything was anticipation. Inside, everything was resolve. The white wedding dress was laid out on the guest bed, lit by a sliver of sunlight streaming through the window. The bouquet, carefully modified the night before, rested beside it. Hidden within was the small Bluetooth device, tucked between the artificial flowers, waiting for its moment to make history. In the hallway, Monica's footsteps approached, accompanied by the distant sound of gospel music coming from the courtyard. Juliet picked up the bouquet, making sure the activation button was accessible. "Juliet!" Monica called, knocking lightly on the door. "The photographer's here, and the makeup team too. Are you ready?" Juliet took a deep breath and answered with a calm voice, "I'm coming." When she opened the door, Monica smiled, but her gaze faltered for a moment. Juliet looked different. Her eyes were serene, yes, but there was something new in that stillness, something steely, something unbreakable. The master bedroom had been turned into a dressing room. Brushes, shadow palettes, highlighters, and hairsprays crowded the vanity. The makeup artist, a cheerful young woman named Denise, greeted her warmly. "Hello, future Mrs. Hayes. You're glowing even before the makeup." Juliet sat in the chair, pulled her hair back into a soft bun, and replied, "Thank you. Today, I'm ready." As the brush swept foundation across her face, Juliet kept her eyes on the mirror. The makeup softened her features but didn't hide her resolve. With every layer of blush, every perfect contour, she felt like she was gearing up for a battle, not a wedding. Outside, the wedding convoy began to form. The white Rolls-Royce, decorated with gold ribbons, waited for Juliet. Guests were already arriving at St. Patrick's Cathedral, one of New York's grandest and most iconic churches, right in the heart of Fifth Avenue. Drones hovered overhead, cameras flanked the gates, and security guards directed the crowd. Inside the church, Elon Hayes, dressed in a custom burgundy suit with black velvet details, greeted guests with the smile of a man who believed he had it all under control. Beside him, Rachel Miller, now in a modest champagne dress, hovered nearby, pretending to be just another assistant. "Man, you hit the jackpot," one of the groomsmen said, patting Elon's shoulder. "Juliet is a queen, pregnant, and still one of the most stunning women I've ever seen." "I know exactly what I've got," Elon replied with a smile that masked his nerves. "She's everything." At the cathedral entrance, the choir was testing mics, and the musicians were tuning instruments. The altar was flawless, floral arrangements in shades of blush and cream, tall candles, and a gold sign that read, "Welcome to the wedding of Juliet Monroe and Elon Hayes." Back at the Monroe home, Juliet was ready. The Vera Wang dress hugged her figure like a second skin. Her 7-month baby bump made everything more symbolic. She descended the staircase slowly, her veil floating behind her, and the entire house fell silent. Even the most talkative aunts didn't say a word. "My God," Aunt Lorraine whispered, "she looks like a vision." Juliet's father, Mr. Whitman, approached with teary eyes and held out his hand to his daughter. "Are you ready, Princess?" Juliet looked at him, squeezed his hand, and answered, "I am, Dad. I'm more than ready." On the way to the church, inside the luxurious car, Juliet stared out the window. The city blurred past, but inside, time felt frozen. She held the bouquet tightly, feeling the hidden device nestled among the flowers. Her father sat beside her, trying to hold back tears. "You know I love you more than anything, right?" "I know," she said. "And today, you'll see just how much I love myself, too." When they arrived at the cathedral, a crowd had gathered on the steps. Guests, photographers, onlookers. Juliet stepped out of the car slowly, her veil covering her face. Flashes burst, applause broke out. It looked like a scene from a movie. Inside, Elon turned the moment he saw her and smiled in relief. He had feared she might back out, but there she was, stunning, commanding, walking down the aisle with her head held high. He whispered to his groomsmen, "She came. I thought I was going to lose it." But she came. The choir softly sang "1,000 Years" as Juliet's footsteps echoed down the marble aisle. At the altar, she took her place and offered her hand to Pastor Benjamin, a kind man respected throughout the community, who smiled warmly at the couple. "Today is a day of unity, of love and of commitment," he began. "A day when two hearts become one." Juliet took a deep breath. Her right hand still clutched the bouquet. Her other hand rested, as always, on her belly. "Elon Hayes," the pastor said, "would you like to share your vows?" Elon took the mic and turned to her. "Juliet, since you came into my life, everything changed. You brought peace, hope. You're carrying our child, and I promise to be your partner, your safe place, forever." The crowd applauded. A few people discreetly wiped away tears. Rachel, sitting in the second row, kept a polite smile. "Juliet Monroe," the pastor continued, "now it's your turn to speak your vows." She lifted her gaze to the audience, looked around the church, breathed in. Then, without saying a word, she moved her hand and pressed the hidden button on the bouquet. A sudden noise erupted from the cathedral speakers. The mic screeched. For a few seconds, people looked around, confused. Then the recording began. Elon's voice rang out clearly. "Juliet's been super emotional lately and always talking about our future. I'm only marrying her because of the baby." A woman's laugh echoed. Rachel's. Another clip followed. "She thinks this is love, but without the pregnancy, she'd be nothing to me. Once the kid is born, I control everything." The murmurs turned into gasps. People stood up. One of the groomsmen covered his mouth. Elon's mother collapsed onto the pew, pale. Elon tried to grab the mic, but the pastor stopped him. Juliet calmly stepped forward. "This is the man I almost married. This is what happened last night, while all of you believed in a lie." She turned and pointed. "And there's the woman he shared a bed with, Rachel Miller, the personal assistant. The woman who pretended to be my friend while planning my downfall." Rachel froze. People stepped away from her. Someone shouted, "Shame!" Another woman started filming. Juliet looked at the pastor. "I came here in a wedding dress, but I didn't come to get married. I came to break free. I choose myself. I choose my daughter. And I won't let any man use me as a tool for power." She removed the engagement ring, dropped it to the floor, turned, and began walking back down the aisle. The audience rose to their feet, applauding. A soft chorus of female voices began singing. Juliet didn't look back. She walked like a queen, like a woman reborn. Outside, the cameras were waiting. A reporter stepped forward with a microphone. Juliet Monroe was the wedding called off. She stopped, lifted her face, and replied, "I came in wearing a wedding dress, but I'm leaving with my dignity. I didn't lose a husband. I found myself." Then she stepped into the car, leaving behind the church, the guests, and the man she once thought she could love. "I need to leave," Elon muttered, rising from the front pew of the cathedral, his hands still shaking. "Oh, you're not going anywhere," his mother shouted, grabbing his arm tightly. "You told me you loved that girl. What kind of monster are you?" Elon tried to speak, but his mouth barely moved. The altar now stood empty, the microphone still hanging mid-air, and the murmuring spread through the aisles like wildfire. His name, and Rachel's, echoed from person to person like a curse unraveling. Every phone was pointed at him, some recording, others live streaming. Within seconds, his disgrace was already making the rounds in Manhattan. Rachel, pale and trembling, tried to slip out through the side of the church, but was blocked by two women in pink dresses. They crossed their arms in front of her. "You don't get to leave through the back after what you did," one of them said. "The bride welcomed you, and you slept with her fiancé. I... Rachel stammered, searching for words. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. It was a mistake. A moment of weakness. A moment of weakness that lasted all night," the other woman shot back. "You two are disgusting." Rachel covered her face and tried to hide, but the crowd now closed in around her, filming, whispering, pointing. At the altar, Pastor Benjamin stood frozen, still holding his open Bible as if in a trance. One of the church elders approached slowly. "Pastor, what should we do?" "We pray," Benjamin answered hoarsely. "We pray, and let God handle the rest." Outside, Juliet stood firm on the cathedral steps, staring up at the New York sky. The sun now shone brightly, reflecting off the silk of her dress and the veil that still fluttered softly in the breeze. A crowd had followed her out. Some moved, others stood in silence. All were stunned. "Juliet, are you okay?" asked an elderly church lady, her eyes welling with tears. "I will be," Juliet replied, locking eyes with her. "Because I didn't let it destroy me." "Was the wedding really cancelled?" Someone in the back shouted. "I cancelled." A young woman holding her phone scoffed, still recording. She exposed the groom at the altar, played audio of him cheating. He was with the secretary, that Rachel woman. Juliet heard the murmurs swell. People who hadn't even entered the building were now heading back to their cars. Some applauded. Others simply stared with quiet respect. A reporter from WNYC extended a microphone. "Miss Monroe, do you plan to move forward with legal action?" Juliet didn't answer. She simply lifted her chin with dignity and remained still, a living statue of resilience. Inside the cathedral, Elon tried to piece his thoughts together. He had lost control. Everything was unraveling. His best man approached slowly. "Man, what do you want me to say?" "Nothing," Elon replied, staring at his hands. "There's nothing left to say." Rachel, seizing a moment of distraction, slipped out the side door. She ran down the garden steps and jumped into a waiting Uber, head down. Tears streamed down her face. Her phone buzzed non-stop, messages from friends, her workplace, family. Some cursed her, others blocked her. Her name was already trending in New York. Rachel Miller, the secretary of the scandal. Meanwhile, Juliet stood talking quietly with her father, who had remained by her side in silence. He held her hand like he had when she was a child. "Is there anything else you need to do, sweetheart?" "There is. I'm not done yet," Juliet said. She let go of his hand and turned around. She climbed the cathedral steps again, making her way through the crowd that now fell silent in her presence. Everyone stepped aside, stunned to see her return. Her heels tapped against the marble floor like marching drums. Elon lifted his head when he saw her enter. "Juliet, please just listen to me." She didn't respond. She walked up to the altar and reached out to the pastor. "May I speak one last time?" The pastor hesitated for a moment, then nodded and handed her the microphone. Juliet turned to the crowd. Her veil was gone. Her face was bare, strong, resolute. "I want to say something, not just for myself, but for every woman who's ever been betrayed while loving, for every woman who's been used while dreaming, for every woman who gave, who trusted, and was treated like an object, not a person." She pointed at Elon. "I gave you my time, my affection, my trust. I believed you were different, and you repaid me with lies, with contempt, with mockery. While I carried our daughter, you laughed behind my back. This isn't just betrayal, it's cowardice." She turned to the crowd. "But I am not a victim. I am a woman who chose herself, who said no to abuse disguised as love, who realized that wearing a white dress doesn't mean staying silent to please anyone." Juliet stepped forward and pointed to Rachel, now just an empty seat. "And for anyone still wondering who the woman in the room was, here's your answer: the secretary, the woman I trusted, who stood by me through all the wedding planning, who called me her friend, who held my veil during dress fittings while she was sleeping with the man I loved." The crowd let out a collective gasp. Someone began to cry. A young priest covered his mouth in shock. "I cancelled this wedding before I ever stepped foot here," Juliet said. "No papers were signed, no blessing was given. I am free. And I've decided I will never be the wife of a liar." She looked at Elon one last time. "You didn't lose a woman. You lost the chance to be a decent man." The crowd stood. Applause exploded. Women wept. Men shook their heads in silence. The choir, unsure what else to do, softly began to sing "Amazing Grace." Juliet walked down the aisle again. This time her steps were followed by clapping, a storm of recognition. She didn't cry, she didn't hesitate. She simply walked to the exit. Outside, the wind was warm now. The sky was clear. Juliet descended the cathedral stairs, her dress still flawless, her head held high. On the sidewalk, reporters and cameras waited. A journalist stepped forward. "Miss Monroe, do you have anything to say to the country at this moment?" She stopped, looked straight into the camera lens and answered firmly, "I came here in a wedding dress, but the one who walked away defeated was the one who lied. I leave in peace, in power, and with my daughter." She stepped into the car. The door closed. The driver pulled away, leaving behind the altar, the pews, the stairs, the sighs, and Elon now sinking in silence in the front pew of the cathedral, staring at the floor as if searching for the pieces of a dignity that never truly existed. "He disappeared from the building this morning. Didn't come in, didn't leave, didn't answer anyone," said a Hayes Tech employee over the phone, her voice hurried and tense. "He just left a folder with documents in his office and vanished. Word is, the shareholders are meeting without him." Inside Juliet's loft, the atmosphere was the opposite. Silence, a warm mug of coffee, and the steady sound of her daughter's heartbeat coming from the portable ultrasound beside her bed. Lying on her side, one hand resting on her belly and the other holding the phone, Juliet listened without reacting. Since leaving St. Patrick's Cathedral 3 days earlier, she hadn't given a single interview, hadn't posted anything, hadn't replied to anyone. But the world hadn't stopped talking about her. The altar scene, the audio, the reveal, it had all been filmed, from multiple angles, across countless accounts. On Twitter, her name trended in under an hour. On Instagram, the video of her speech at the altar had surpassed 5 million views. On TikTok, teenagers were making edits using her quotes, set to dramatic music. Juliet Monroe, the Fall of Elon, the secretary from room 712, truth at the altar. Juliet ended the call and rested the phone on her stomach, staring at the ceiling for a while. She didn't smile, not yet. But what she felt was no longer pain. It was something deeper, a stillness that blooms after the storm. The answering machine beeped in the living room. More messages, more interview requests. One was from CNN, another from Elle magazine, and one, more urgent, from the New York Times. She got up slowly and headed to the kitchen, making a banana and oat smoothie. The same breakfast she'd made every morning since her 4th month of pregnancy. While the blender whirred, she opened her laptop on the counter and checked her email. Over 400 unread messages, some from brands offering partnerships, but most were from women. So many women. Some stories were short, others long, painful, urgent. Confessions from those who had lived through something similar. Some wrote, "Thank you for doing what I never had the courage to do." Others, "Because of you, I left home last night." One came from a young woman in Tennessee. "My dad saw the video. He cried, apologized to my mom. That never would have happened without you." Juliet read every line carefully. Each one felt pulled from the pages of real life. And there, facing so many shared wounds, she made her decision. She started a blog, not to respond to interviews, not to defend herself, but to give voice to others. She named the blog The Bride Who Walked. She wrote the first post that very morning. "I wore a white dress, but I didn't marry shame. I walked to that altar not just to free myself, but every woman who's ever been used behind pretty promises. This is my story, but I hope it becomes your strength." She hit publish, and it was like opening a floodgate. Within hours, the blog crashed from too much traffic. Juliet received a call from the server host. They'd never seen that kind of activity in so little time. She upgraded the plan, redesigned the layout, and by the next day, the blog came back stronger than ever. And it kept growing. Behind the scenes, Elon's world was collapsing like a house of cards left in the rain. The video of his betrayal had reached the Hayes Tech Investor Committee before he could even react. Several billion-dollar deals were frozen. A partnership with a biotech giant was cancelled. The stock price dropped 17% in 2 days. Juliet's stepfather had kept his promise. He pulled his investment, nearly $30 million, taking with him 2 other shareholders who trusted his lead. The stain on the company's name now posed a serious financial risk, and the name Elon Hayes had become synonymous with scandal in Manhattan. Meanwhile, Juliet received invitations from women's organizations. At first, smaller circles, meetups, support groups, roundtable talks, Then came the bigger ones. The National Women's Coalition reached out. Essence magazine wanted a cover story. A movement called She Walks credited her as their inspiration. But Juliet stayed focused. "I don't want fame," she told Monica one afternoon, sitting on the terrace sipping iced tea. "I just want these women to know they're not alone. That getting back up after a fall isn't weakness. It's rebirth." "Then you already get it," Monica replied. "This was never about Elon. It was about what he tried to destroy and what you saved. Yourself." That same week, Juliet began writing a book. Title: The Vows I Made to Myself. A mix of memoir, reflections, and advice, but not a guidebook, a testimony. She wrote at night, while the city quieted, and her daughter's kicks came like reminders that a new life was about to begin, both in the world and within her. Slowly, she became a symbol. The blog went from 10,000 to 50,000 followers in a matter of days. Many began to write too. They shared their stories, sent videos, photos. A forum was born, then a private group for more sensitive exchanges. And Juliet? She replied to every message she could. She didn't want to be a symbol of scandal. She wanted to be a symbol of choice. Meanwhile, Elon could no longer attend events. The press followed him everywhere. People whispered in coffee shops. A Wall Street Journal article stated bluntly, "From empire to obscurity, the CEO exposed at the altar." Rachel had vanished. Sources said she'd requested leave from the company. Some mentioned therapy, others a move out of state. No one knew for sure. And to Juliet it hardly mattered. What mattered now was something bigger. The following Monday, she went live on social media. No makeup, no filter. Her daughter still in her belly, wearing an oversized t-shirt and tired but luminous eyes. "I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a woman who said enough. A woman who chose not to stay silent. And if my voice can help you shout or whisper what you need to say, then all of this was worth it." The live stream reached 800,000 views in 2 days. And just like that, without meaning to, Juliet became not only the bride who walked, but the woman who made thousands walk with her. "Juliet, it's time." Her mother's voice echoed firmly through the room, though her eyes were brimming with tears. "The car is here." Juliet rose slowly from the bed, her movements careful with her now low-hanging belly. A soft blue cotton dress draped down to her ankles, simple, comfortable. She slipped on her shoes without hurry, looked in the mirror one last time, and gave her reflection a faint smile. She was tired but alive, pregnant but steady, alone but whole. In her right hand, she carried a small bag with documents. In her left, her phone. It was Saturday, and she had been invited to speak to a group of women at the Grace Women's Center in Harlem. It wasn't a major stage, there were no big cameras, but for Juliet, it was the most important place she could be. "Mum," she said, turning to her, "take care of everything here. I'll be back by the end of the day. Take it easy. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, sweetheart." Juliet smiled with her eyes. "It's not about proving. It's about sharing." The car glided through Manhattan toward Harlem. Outside, the city buzzed. Tourists crowded cafes and saxophonists played on street corners. But inside the vehicle, Juliet was silent. She thought about what she would say, thought about the women who would be there, expecting more than a story, expecting a mirror. When she arrived, she was greeted by an older woman with dark skin and silver-threaded braids. "Juliet Monroe?" the woman asked, smiling like someone welcoming a daughter. "Yes. And you must be Mrs. Effie Noah. Call me Mama Effie. Everyone here does. Welcome, my dear. The girls are excited to hear you." The room was modest. Plastic chairs, 2 open windows, and ceiling fans slowly turning overhead. Around 25 women filled the space, some young, some older, a few with children in their arms. Juliet was led to the front and handed a handheld microphone. She didn't rehearse, didn't read. She just began. "My name is Juliet Monroe. I was supposed to get married just over a month ago. I wore a white dress. I walked to the altar, but I didn't get married. I chose something else that day. I chose myself." The room was thick with silence. Not from boredom, but from deep listening. Juliet spoke about Elon, about the recording, about the bouquet with the hidden device. But more importantly, she spoke about how none of it destroyed her. It woke her up. Love isn't a trophy. It's a space of respect. And when that respect is taken away, we shouldn't stay. We should walk. Some women cried. Others bowed their heads. A young woman in the back raised her hand. "Were you scared?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Scared to raise a daughter alone?" Juliet paused for a moment before answering. I still am, but fear is only a visitor. Courage is the one who stays." Applause followed. She continued for nearly an hour, then sat among the women. They talked, laughed, cried together. It was more than a talk, it was group healing. As she was leaving, a teenage girl, maybe 17, approached with a baby in her arms. "I don't have a home, but today, listening to you, I realized leaving was the right thing. My name is Kiara. I left yesterday, slept in a shelter, but today I heard you, and I don't feel alone anymore." Juliet hugged her tightly, held her for a few seconds. "You're not alone, and now that you've walked, you'll keep walking, one step at a time." Back at the loft later that afternoon, Juliet found her mother making chicken soup and her father assembling a new crib. "How did it go?" her mother asked with a smile. "Unforgettable." She headed to her room, changed clothes, and lay down. Her body ached, but her soul felt light. She picked up her phone and opened the blog, The Bride Who Walked. Another 1,000 messages. One read, "My name is Ada. I wanted to end my life last month. I saw your speech at the altar, and when I saw you walk, I chose to live. Thank you." Juliet pressed the phone to her chest, closed her eyes, and let a few tears fall. For the first time, not from pain, but from gratitude. The following week, she went to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor listened to the baby's heartbeat and smiled. "Your daughter is doing great. Strong, healthy, she'll be here soon." Juliet nodded. "So am I. I'm ready to welcome her." Back home, she lay on the couch and began sketching the first drafts of the foundation she wanted to start. Grace House NYC, a safe space for pregnant women, abandoned or betrayed. A place to walk with dignity, to no longer have to choose between pain and silence. Monica arrived with bags of gifts. "I know you said no gifts, but I couldn't help it. Look at these little clothes and these eco-friendly diapers." Juliet laughed. "You're going to spoil this baby more than I will, and you're going to be the bravest mom I know." That night before bed, Juliet rubbed coconut oil on her belly as she always did. The baby moved. Juliet smiled and whispered, "You were the beginning of my freedom. Now I'm going to show you the world. No lies, no fear, just love. Real love." Outside, the city lights flickered, but inside that home, there was only peace. The storm had passed, and on the horizon, Juliet saw something new, a life that no longer needed applause, just truth. "It's happening, Juliet. Did you see this?" Monica burst into the living room, phone in hand. "They published a full article about you in Harper's Bazaar." Juliet, sitting cross-legged on the rug folding baby socks, looked up slowly, unshaken. "Another one?" "Yes, and not just that. You've been invited to speak at the Women's Leadership Forum at Columbia. They're calling you the voice of a new American femininity." "I just wanted to fold these socks in peace," she murmured, but smiled at her friend's excitement. It was early March, and the city was beginning to emerge from winter. Juliet, now 8 months pregnant, felt the weight of her belly and the deeper transformation still unfolding, within her and around her. Grace House NYC, her initiative for supporting abandoned pregnant women, now had a home, a ground-floor space in Brooklyn with wide windows and white walls. It had 3 chairs, 2 small rooms, and a banner on the wall that read, "You're not weak. You're just walking away from what never deserved you." And there, day after day, Juliet welcomed. She sat. She listened. She held space. She cried with some, gave advice to others, shared her story when needed. It was a living support network. No red tape, no judgment. Online, her blog, The Bride Who Walked, had grown into a community, then a foundation, Now, it was becoming a movement. Women weren't just reading. They were writing, recording videos, organizing meetups, marching together. Some wore t-shirts with Juliet's quote from the altar, "I didn't lose a man, he lost a woman who knew her worth." Meanwhile, Elon was sinking. The former headquarters of Hayes Tech, a mirrored tower in Hudson Yards, now had half its floors empty. Several teams had been laid off. Corporate email traffic had plummeted. At the last remaining investors' meeting, the decision was unanimous. Temporary removal of Elon Hayes from the board. He received the notice at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday, sitting alone in a rented apartment in Soho. He stared at the paper for several minutes before placing it on the table and facing his reflection in the glass balcony door. A tired face, dark circles, overgrown hair, an untrimmed beard hiding a lost expression. That night, he tried calling Juliet. The number was blocked. The next day, he tried Monica, then Rachel, who had also vanished. No one answered. His lawyers were more concerned with managing the PR fallout than listening to his regrets. He typed a short message. "Juliet, please, I just want to talk. I'm sorry." No response ever came. Meanwhile, Juliet was finalizing details of the nursery at home. Her father had built the dresser himself. Her mother was preparing broths, soups, and freezing meals for the postpartum days. Monica was sewing cloth diapers with hand-stitched motivational quotes. One Saturday afternoon, Juliet received a voice message through her blog. "I'm Ada. I used to live in Ohio. I married a man who hit me, but hid it from everyone. The day I saw you walk away from that altar, I realized I could walk away from mine too. I left with my son. We're in a shelter now, but we're alive. Thank you." Juliet listened to the message more than once. Then, with teary eyes, she wrote a reply on the blog. "If my pain gave you strength, then it wasn't in vain. A woman's freedom is like a stone dropped in a lake. It makes waves. You are not alone, Ada, and you're not afraid anymore. That's freedom." The following Monday, Juliet was invited to speak at a university in the Bronx. When she arrived, she was welcomed by young women ages 18 to 25, seated in a simple but full auditorium. Juliet stepped onto the stage slowly, wearing a blue and white patterned dress, her belly visibly out front, as if to say, "I'm whole, even after everything." She took the mic, looked at the crowd, and began, "My name is Juliet Monroe. And yes, I was left. I was betrayed. I was lied to. But more than anything, I was saved. By myself." The room fell silent. She continued, "I know what it's like to believe someone will protect you, only to realize you're on your own. I know what it's like to carry a child inside your body, and at the same time carry the grief of a love that died. But you know what I've learned? We don't have to carry what doesn't belong to us anymore." The girls began to applaud. Some cried. Others simply held their friends' hands. Society calls it failure when a woman doesn't get married, but I call it courage when she chooses not to join what would destroy her. The truth, the white dress doesn't make the bride. It's the dignity in her walk that does. At the end of the talk, many came up to hug her. One said, "I was thinking of accepting a marriage proposal last week just because I'm pregnant, but now I'm going to wait. I'm going to do it differently." That night, Juliet returned home with a light heart, though her body felt heavy. The baby was kicking more frequently. She lay down, placed her hands on her belly, and whispered, "You're almost here, and the world you're coming into is freer, my love. Because your mother chose to break the cycle." Across town, Elon was watching a video of her speech on his phone. He sat alone in a dark living room, papers scattered across the floor. He paused the video as Juliet said, "I was saved by myself." He dropped the phone on the table and covered his face with his hands. He knew nothing could bring it back. Not money, not flowers, not regret. He had lost a woman the world now called a symbol, but to him, she was more than that. She was the only person who had believed in him until the very end, until room 712. The next morning, Juliet drank tea on the balcony while reading a new email. Subject, official invitation, TED Talk San Francisco. Theme, When the Choice is to Walk. She closed her eyes, smiled, and replied, "Yes, I accept." The woman who had been humiliated at an altar was now being asked to teach the world how to rise. And she had done it all without revenge. She had simply walked, and the world followed. "She's here," the nurse announced gently, pushing the clear bassinet down the brightly lit hallway of the maternity ward with a kind smile. Juliet sat up in bed with effort, her body still fragile, but her eyes steady and alert. The moment her baby was placed in her arms, she exhaled in relief, running her fingers across her daughter's rosy cheeks. Grace Monroe Hayes had been born at 4:27 a.m. From in a calm birth surrounded by love, in the very hospital where Juliet had spent her childhood, visiting patients with her mother, a nurse. "Hi, my little one. You're here," she whispered, pressing her forehead to her daughter's. "And I waited so long for this." In the chair beside the bed, Monica held a basket of white flowers and a handwritten card. "Welcome, Grace. You are already the light of a world your mother helped heal." Juliet looked at her friend, moved. "Thank you for everything, Mon." "You did all of it, Jules. I just stood by you." On the hospital room wall, a delicate frame bore Grace's name embroidered in soft thread. The doctors entered quietly for routine checks. Juliet watched them closely, still in awe of the strength in that tiny body and the weight of transformation her arrival carried. Outside the hospital, reporters and onlookers had gathered discreetly. Ever since Juliet had gone public with her pregnancy, everything tied to her name sparked attention. But now she maintained full control over what she shared and what she protected. And her daughter would be protected. In the days that followed, Juliet rested at home, surrounded by her parents, by Monica, and by messages of support and donations pouring daily into Grace House NYC. The official opening of the shelter was scheduled for the following month, and registrations were already exceeding expectations. The modest, welcoming house in Brooklyn had been furnished through donations and volunteer help. 4 shared bedrooms, a communal kitchen, a small living room with pillows and bookshelves. A whiteboard on the wall displayed quotes written by the women who had stayed there. "I'm not a mistake, I'm a beginning. Scars aren't ugly, they're maps of where we've been. We are not what was done to us. We are what we choose to do next." On the week of the opening, Juliet appeared before the cameras again, holding Grace in her arms. She was greeted with applause by journalists and guests. She stepped up to the microphone, her hair loose over her shoulders, wearing a white shirt and wide linen pants. "Today, more than a shelter is born. Today, a place is born where no woman will be treated like leftovers. No mother will be called weak for walking forward with her baby instead of kneeling for someone who betrayed her." Grace House is a response to pain, to shame, to loneliness. Here we begin again, and better. Her words spread quickly, on websites, newspapers, social media. Juliet was soon approached by universities, collectives, and national women's organizations. She was invited to speak at NYU, then Columbia. In both, she was welcomed with standing ovations. Her TED Talk in San Francisco, titled "When the Choice is to Walk," went viral just hours after it was posted. In her speech, she said, "Everyone thinks the altar is a place of arrival, but sometimes it's where you leave. Walking out in a wedding dress through the front door takes more courage than staying for pride. I walked out, and in doing so, I found something no one had ever given me before: freedom." Her book, The Vows I Made to Myself, released just weeks later, became an Amazon bestseller in under 3 days. The cover showed a pair of female feet walking barefoot over marble, firm, steady. The back cover held only one sentence: "I made my vows, and I kept them." As Juliet rose, Elon faded. Isolated in his Soho loft, he lived between bottles of wine and failed attempts at reinvention. Hayes-Tech was no longer his. The board had permanently removed him. His name had been wiped from the company's website. The building now simply read H-Tech. Little by little, his friends disappeared. The invitations stopped. Rachel had moved to Chicago. The only contact Elon still attempted was with Juliet, but his messages remained blocked. He watched her talks, read the book in secret, listened to podcasts where she was interviewed. One quiet night, The city dimmed beyond the window. Elon whispered to himself, "I didn't just lose her. I lost the only good part of me." Juliet never spoke of him publicly again. When asked about the scandal, she would reply, "That's behind me. What matters is what I built after." One spring afternoon, Juliet was pushing a stroller through Central Park. She wore sunglasses and a simple cap. Some people recognized her but respected her silence. She stopped near a tree, picked up Grace, kissed her forehead, and murmured, "You were my new beginning, baby girl. Now I'm going to be yours." That same week, Juliet was named one of Time magazine's 100 Women of the Year. The photo chosen showed her sitting on the floor at Grace House, surrounded by other women, all smiling, all different. Women who had arrived wounded and left with heads held high. Below the image, the caption read, "The bride who walked and brought the world with her." When interviewed about the honor, Juliet said, "I never wanted to be a symbol. I just wanted to be heard. But if my voice helped others find theirs, then I'm glad I spoke." The reporter asked, "If you could go back to that day at the altar, would you do anything differently?" She looked at the camera, smiled softly, and answered, "I didn't lose a wedding. I gained myself." And that was the final line of the article. The final image of that chapter. Juliet Monroe moved forward, with her daughter, with her home, with her mission, not to prove anything to anyone, but to remind everyone that love begins within. And no altar, no matter how beautiful, is worth the cost of your own truth. Because in the end, the only vow that truly matters is the one you make to your freedom. And Juliet had sealed hers with unwavering steps. Hear what it meant to you. Remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. This is really important for the channel. Really important. And if you're ready for another story of love and hope, click the first card or the second one to watch the full playlist. See you there.